This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans. It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Wrestling is full of many what-ifs, including those involving wrestlers who might have become WWF Champion. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at superstars who are reportedly in line to become WWF Champion from 1983 to 1992, part 1 of 2. Before we get started though, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Getting the belt to the Hulkster. Vince McMahon knew he wanted Hulk Hogan as his standard bearer for the WWF, but first the Hulkster needed to take the belt off a heel champion. That was the way the WWF had done business from the start, and this time would be no different. As detailed in our video, The Iron Sheik's Greatest Moments, the WWF worked an angle where the Iron Sheik attacked Bob Backlund when the WWF Champion was performing the Sheik's Persian Club Challenge. As a result, Backlund went into his December 26, 1983 match against the Iron Sheik with a kayfabe injured shoulder, which allowed Backlund to lose the title gracefully. The match saw the Iron Sheik trap Backlund in the camel clutch, with Bob having no chance of escape. Backlund refused to quit, however, which reflected his babyface character. Backlund's longtime manager, Arnold Skolin, threw in the towel rather than see his client permanently injured. While Backlund was booked for a rematch next month, Vince McMahon Jr. booked an angle where Backlund's shoulder injury was aggravated in another match, forcing him to pull out. Backlund gave his title shot to Hulk Hogan, who had returned to the WWF after previously working as a heel. Backlund vouched for the Hulkster, claiming that the Hulk had seen the light. However, Hulk Hogan claims Backlund wasn't gung-ho on the Hulkster replacing him. In a 2019 interview on the Steve Austin Show, Hogan claimed, "I went to Madison Square Garden and I was supposed to win the belt that night, but before that happened, I made some TVs and I went out there with Backlund and we had a tag team match against the Wild Samoans. And after that, Backlund went up to Vince Sr. and said, 'I don't want to work with Hulk anymore.' And he drew a line in the sand. He didn't want to be my partner. He didn't want to be around me." And Vince Jr. goes, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Bob's just in shock because he doesn't have the belt. He thinks it's a shoot, you know?" So that night at Madison Square Garden, I'm in the garden standing in the hallway. And Vince has those kind of glasses down his nose. He's clicking the quarters together looking at me. Vince is here, Vince Sr.'s here, I'm here, and Bob Backlund's standing right here, and he's covered with hives. He's covered head to toe with hives because he thought he was going to win the belt back from the Sheik. Plans had changed after I had made the deal with Vince. Hogan's incredible tale continued, with the Hulkster claiming that Vince McMahon Sr. was having second thoughts about the title change. So all of a sudden we're talking, and Vince Sr. is looking at me, and Bob Backlund speaks up and says, "I don't think anybody should win the title that's not a real athlete." I looked at Backlund. I had been training with him in Japan, on tours with him. I'm the only one who will run the steps with him. I'm the only one who will do that crazy workout that he was doing. And he shot that angle on the spot that he didn't think I should win the belt because I'm not a real athlete. And Vince Sr. goes, "Well, Terry, we really should think this thing through. And I think maybe in about 6 months from now, it might be about a good time to put the belt on you." I go, "Vince Sr., all due respect, that's not the deal I made with your son. I just burnt a huge bridge in Minnesota, so I'm going to go out. I'm going to put the Sheik over tonight, but then I'm going right back. Going to rebuild that bridge that I burnt down, then I'm out of here." And Vince Jr. goes, Let's talk. Vince took me in the back room and says, "I'll be back in a few minutes." So I guess he went to his dad and he fixed it. This story sounds like one of the many incredible tall tales that Hulk Hogan has become legendary for spinning. First, Vince McMahon Sr. was no longer running the company as he had sold it to his son Vince Jr. Second, in his memoir Backlund, Bob recalls, "Vince Sr. told me that I would have a main event rematch against the Sheik at the Garden in January, and Vince Jr. even told me that I'd be getting the belt back from the Sheik at that card, but that the details of all that hadn't been worked out yet." In retrospect, I think Vince Jr. must have just told me that to make sure that I would cooperate with the plan they were hatching. Not cooperating never even entered my mind. As for Backlund refusing to put over a non-athlete, Backlund also disputes this. While he admits that he was pleased to transfer the title to an athlete such as the Iron Sheik, he notes, "Over the years, there have been a lot of rumors and stories that I refused to drop the belt to Bill Eadie, aka the Masked Superstar, because he did not have a legitimate amateur background. That I handpicked Khosrow, aka the Iron Sheik, because he did. Both are false. Vince McMahon Sr. approached me for the first time about changing the title on December 6th at the Allentown tapings. He told me that I'd be losing the belt at the Garden to the Sheik on December 26th. The only thing I had any say in was the finish. While Backlund could keep nearly any opponent from taking the belt from him in a shoot, his professionalism and his tremendous respect for Vince McMahon Sr. meant that he would put over whoever he was asked to. Hogan's account of things just doesn't add up, particularly given Backlund's reputation among his peers for the utmost professionalism. Simply put, that doesn't work for me, brother, is unlikely to be found in Bob Backlund's lexicon. Backlund drops the title to Ivan Koloff? Could Ivan Koloff have been the man to dethrone Bob Backlund, making him a two-time WWF champion? That's a tale the Russian Bear tells in his autobiography, Is That Wrestling Fake? Koloff recalls a meeting with Vince McMahon Jr. in December 1983 where Vince asked me if I wanted to stay around longer. They had a big program they wanted me to be a part of. I was having a lot of trouble with my knee, and I needed a rest. So I turned them down. I appreciate you offering me the opportunity, but I need some time off for health issues, and I have to get back to my family. However, what was the opportunity? According to Koloff, after I gave them my decision, I was told their plan was to have Bob Backlund drop the WWF title to me. A few weeks later, I would lose it to Hulk Hogan in the Garden. The spot they originally planned for me went to the Iron Sheik. Koloff was still a viable contender, and it would have created an interesting situation with a heel dethroning not one, but two of the WWF's most beloved babyfaces at the time. As Koloff tells it, he was in so much pain, the only ththing he wanted was to move on. Hulkamania is running wild. Or is it? Just as his father envisioned a new style of world champion, Vince McMahon Jr. wanted someone different to take his version of the WWF to new heights. That wrestler turned out to be Hulk Hogan, a performer who oozed charisma, had exciting promos, looked like a modern-day Hercules, and had the right amount of talent that his other gifts could hide. Vince poached Hogan from the AWA, but what if he hadn't? There were at least two other wrestlers on Vince Jr.'s wish list. Carrie Von Eric. WWF fans who enjoyed Carrie Von Eric's work as the Texas Tornado only got to see a shadow of the wrestler the modern-day Warrior was in 1983. Von Eric was the heir apparent for the Von Eric family and seemed next in line for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, a title that was reportedly going to Carrie's brother David until David's tragic passing during a tour of Japan. There have been many rumors about Carrie being on Vince McMahon's short list when Vince was ready to anoint his chosen one to take the WWF to new heights. As fans know, Hulk Hogan became champion, but if he wasn't available, wrestling lore has it that Carrie Von Eric could have become champion instead. Carrie had the build, good looks, and enough talent to work as WWF champion. While his in-ring skills weren't on par with other champions such as Ric Flair or Bob Backlund, anyone who has seen his matches knows he was a capable enough performer. And at the risk of alienating Hulkamaniacs, the Hulkster's WWF work wasn't anything to make Luthas jealous. Interestingly, Vince McMahon had a good working relationship with world-class championship wrestling. As Tim Hornbaker writes in Death of the Territories, the WWF and world-class championship wrestling had considered co-promoting shows. Partnership never materialized, but that didn't stop McMahon from considering Carrie as his golden boy. If McMahon had gone with Carrie Von Eric, he would have had to deal with Von Eric's quote-unquote personal demons. Although Fritz Von Erich was able to use his influence to keep much of his son's unsavory behavior out of the public light, it's unknown how much McMahon would have been able to do with the champion touring North America. It's also unknown whether Von Erich would have been up to the rigors of such touring. It's often been pointed out that the National Wrestling Alliance gave Carrie a short run with the NWA title due to concerns about him being able to defend it over a lengthy period. Ric Flair recalled on his Woo Nation podcast in 2021 whether Von Erich was scheduled for a longer reign. Yes, absolutely, he was supposed to have it. He missed his first shot. I don't know where it was, and I don't know why he missed it. If there's any truth in the history, there are obvious reasons why he may have missed it. But once again, the greatest kid in the world, but we all have our demons. I was going over there to wrestle Harley Race. We were getting paid a lot of money to wrestle in Singapore and then Hong Kong. We flew back into Tokyo, and they called me and said, "You're going to take the belt off Carrie, and we're flying him over there now." That's how that happened. It could have been due to an injury. I don't know. I just know he missed it. That's why I got it back. Would Vince McMahon have been able to keep Carrie in check? If so, Von Erich seems to have fit the mold of the big man that McMahon wanted for his champion. Although he lacked Hulk Hogan's overall charisma, Von Erich had plenty going for him, and by focusing on his positives, McMahon could have made him a marketable star, even if he failed to match the success success of Hulk Hogan. Carrie Von Eric clicked with WWF fans when he entered the promotion in 1990. It's easy to imagine him doing even better had he joined the WWF in 1983. In hindsight, it's unlikely any wrestler could have achieved the same success for the WWF as Hulk Hogan did during the days of Hulkamania, but Von Eric could have played a strong role, taking the company to the next level if Vince McMahon had found a way to help Von Eric conquer his personal demons. Regrettably, that's a major what-if to consider. Dream the impossible dream. Dusty Rhodes, WWF Champion? Dusty Rhodes' legendary series against superstar Billy Graham and the WWF during the late 1970s was just one of the many money-making programs the American Dream was involved in. Rhodes was popular with Vince McMahon Sr., who was friends with promoter Eddie Graham, who booked Dusty in his Championship Wrestling from Florida program. Vince McMahon Jr. was a big fan, and wrestling legend has it that Vince Jr. had Dusty on his short list for his new world champion. By 1983, Dusty's popularity hadn't diminished, and while he was anything but the physical specimen McMahon had with Hogan or Von Eric, Dusty's wrestling style, that of a brawler who also incorporated some wrestling, and his mind-boggling charisma and promo skills made up for this. It's easy to see Dusty coming into the WWF for another run, this time doing what he couldn't accomplish earlier, winning the company's World Championship. Dusty had the everyman quality that made fans root for him, and there's little question he could have taken the WWF to new heights. Would Dusty have ever taken the WWF to the same heights as Hulk Hogan? That's a matter of debate, as Dusty easily assimilated to the WWF style when he entered the company years later during the infamous Polka Dot era. Wrestling's Greatest Moments believes Rhodes would have done well, but would he have been able to charm popular culture as Hulk Hogan had? As for Dusty coming back into the WWF in 1983, that's an entirely different matter. The problem was that by 1983, Rhodes was working as the booker for Jim Crockett Promotions, as well as wrestling. Would Dusty have been willing to give up both jobs, even for a run with the WWF Championship? McMahon already had George Scott booking the WWF, and would Vince have wanted a wrestler holding the book? Dusty was a long shot, and despite his charisma and promo advantages over Carrie Von Eric, Wrestling's Greatest Moments believes Carrie Von Eric's physique would have been the deciding factor for Vince McMahon. What do you think of these potential champions? Do you think any of these stories are hard to believe? Share your thoughts in the comment section and let us know if there's any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.